Rivaldo and Ronaldo. Just them two just destroyed us. And to be fair, they were like.
It's no shame they did it to almost everyone, that competition, and they did it 4 years later as well. Edo, welcome to another edition of the No Choftes podcast on the OLB. I'm your host, Stel, and we always get some fantastic guests on this podcast. We had Elias, who played for a year at Omonia, Brazilian international player, won the UEFA Cup with Inter Milan. We had Fregi, we've had Matt Derbyshire, we've had so many fantastic guests. But this guest that we have now has won the Confederation Cup with Denmark. He's played at European Championships. He's played at World Cups. He's played against the likes of Alan Shearer, Gabriel Batistuta. The list of names goes on. This guy played in the Premier League for Derby County. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Jacob Laursen. Welcome to the No Choftes podcast, my friend. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Fantastic. When I reeled off the list of those names, did you get a lot of memories coming back to you?
Yes, it's like sometimes it's quite a few years back now, and you seem to forget who you played against, and you know some of the big names, and you also forget that, oh, you actually played against some good teams and you did really well. So sometimes you forget that, and you have to, no, it's not too bad.
I'd love to see the amount of shirts you've got that you've swapped with players, and then the list of names you got on the back of them.
Yeah, I mean, what it is it's like I was lucky to play for a good team in England, Derby. I spoke the other day with some people from Derby, and like they said, it's probably the best team that's been in the Premier League, the new Premier League. I know Derby had a team in the 70s who was unbelievable players, and they won the league. But apart from that, we were probably one of the best teams, and we played against really, really good players. And then again, I had a good run in the national team with Denmark, a period where we had fantastic players, and we actually played against some big names from the other national teams and that. And yeah, we went to the World Cup in '98 where we got to the quarterfinals. Denmark has not gone any further than that ever. So, yeah.
There you go. Brilliant. Well, look, before we talk about your stint at Derby County, it wasn't really a stint. You had a good 4 or 5 seasons at Derby, if not longer. You played for Silkeborg, if I'm mistaken there?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was also a player that ended up at Chelsea called Jacob Laursen.
Yeah.
Was he there at the same time as you?
Yes. What it is like I actually played with Jacob in the national the Olympic team, and we went to the Olympics together. And what it was is like Silkeborg knew they were going to sell him, and he is like nearly 3 years older than me, and they brought me in as a cover for him.
Amazing, right? Okay.
And we played, Jacob and I, at Silkeborg. We probably had like, I think, 5-6 games together or something, not a lot. And then he was sold to Chelsea. So yeah, I was sort of they bought me from Vejle, another decent team in Denmark, as a cover for him just before the Olympics in '92.
Incredible. And he didn't do too badly at Chelsea, to be honest, did he? I know he had a few seasons there with Erland Jonsson.
Yeah, he did well, but unfortunately Jacob got injured and you know, had a lot of problems injury wise and had to stop quite early. I think he actually got paid out insurance because it was that bad. So I've met him a couple of times, and now he's actually a big TV star. He's got his own show called Robinson, where they send people off to an island and stuff like that. He's done that for, I don't know, forever. I think it's only the first 2 or 3 seasons he didn't do it, but after that he's done it every time ever since.
Was he a presenter or an actor?
No, he's a presenter.
He's a presenter.
Wow. Yeah, it's this thing where they send people off to an island and they have to compete, and then they have people can vote and stuff like that to send them out and that. So yeah, it is.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you moved to Derby County under Jim Smith, and I believe Steve McLaren was his number 2 at the time. But Derby had a pretty decent squad back then. I remember the likes of Asanovic, Stimac, Sturridge. Who else? Gabbiadini, who was a pretty prolific goal scorer back in the day. Paolo One-Chop. Who else? Chris Powell, who's at Spurs now, coaching.
Yeah.
So When you heard about Derby's interest, you mentioned earlier about Derby County having some fantastic history. Did you feel, right, okay, this is a club that I could really settle in at?
Yes, and it was actually something that was going on for quite a while, nearly, I think, 8 months or something, because they wanted to bring me over. But unfortunately, they started losing a few games. And I spoke to Jim Smith, and he said, Jacob, listen, I wanted to bring you over. You're quite young. I need somebody a bit more experienced. And that's when he brought Igor Stimac to the club. And then he said, but listen, if we get promoted, I'll come and get you. And then all of a sudden they started winning games, like they just couldn't lose. So it was actually ongoing for 6 to 8 months. And then in that period of time, you actually look at what has this club done before? And I mean, it's in England, it has a really good reputation. And when you get there and you start playing that, you realize that the fans as well actually appreciate people who's doing their job as a footballer, not only the ones that are scoring all the goals. So for me, I couldn't have picked a better club.
And you mentioned the fans. I remember that stadium, the baseball ground. Oof. Now, that could be quite hostile for an away team, but it really gave you guys a boost, didn't it?
I agree with you, because I think that's one of the reasons why we actually stayed in the Premier League the first season. I came when they got promoted in the summer, and we stayed up. I know that there were discussions at the club whether they should build the stadium that we moved to, Pride Park, so it's ready for the first time they were back in the Premier League. But they sort of believed, okay, let's have one season at the baseball ground, because like you say, it's hostile, it's a small pitch. You know, the energy you get from the supporters when you feel fatigued after 85 minutes, it would help the team, and it did. It's unbelievable. And when you look at it, I mean, I thought it was sold out every game, home game, 22,000. And when I spoke to one of the old guys who was playing in the team in the 70s, who won the league in that, and he told me, but when we played Real Madrid and teams like that, there were 42,000 here. I said, impossible. It's impossible. But there was 42,000, and we had 22, and I thought it was packed. So it's a special ground, and it helped us the first season. Fantastic place.
In saying that, I know it might be a bit of an unfair question to ask you, but do you think that moving into Pride Park, I know there was the financial element of doing it, but you notice a pattern with teams moving into new stadiums, like these identikit stadiums. It happened with Middlesbrough, it's happened with Derby, with Sunderland. They moved into this new stadium after coming from very hostile environments. I remember Middlesbrough were at Ayresome Park. Sunderland were at, what's Sunderland's old stadium called? I forget. Roker Park, that's right. And they moved to these new stadiums and they just go downhill. I mean, we've seen with Arsenal how they struggled, Tottenham this season. So I know, again, it's an unfair question to ask, but do you think moving into these new pretty stadiums hampers a club in a certain way? I don't think it's coincidence.
I don't know what it is. It's just, I mean, you miss this, the soul of the stadium. And I think sometimes because, the old stadiums, and I was fortunate enough to play at Highbury as well. And, when you play and the first row of supporters, they're like maximum of 2 yards away from you on the pitch, and you can hear them. And sometimes there's a bit of a banter going on between you and the supporters in a nice way. I mean, I know some of the words we can't say here, but still it's meant in an okay way, in a respectful way, even though that the language is not always nice. And maybe sometimes this connection, you feel like it takes time before you get that at a new place. And I don't know, it seems strange. I do understand why they do it, because like I told you, at baseball ground, we had 22,000. We moved to Pride Park, 33,000. So it's more money and better training facilities, better corporate facilities. You earn more money. It's better for the team. That's how they look at it. But sometimes you actually lose a bit of your soul as well. And I think it's a shame. I know it's difficult. The thing
is, the reason why I asked this again is because my team, Omonia, we moved into the Gazibi, which is the national stadium, like Cyprus's version of Wembley, basically, and we share it with Apoel. Now, Apoel have been very successful over the past decade. I think they've won 7 league titles in a row prior to 2 seasons ago, whereas we've only won 3 since 1999 when we moved into there. So, you know, Magario was our stadium before. We obviously don't use it anymore. And again, moving to the Gazibi was maybe for financial reasons or for whatever reason. But at the same time, it's like, well, you can tell that one team hasn't really progressed since moving to that new stadium, whereas another team have. So you're thinking, well, maybe because one club has got better finances than the other. You just don't know. So when it comes to the ground sharing, but I think if we do move to our new stadium, which is looking likely in the next few years, then we might get that identity. And you know, we see with Juventus, they're trying to create an identity at this new stadium of theirs. It's difficult, but they've won how many league titles in a row in Serie A, you know?
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, because I think that's one of the reasons why we succeeded at Derby to do the transition from baseball ground to Pride Park. Is that the fans were ready for it. We had success, so more people wanted to watch us play, and also some of the, what do you say, memorabilia or whatever, some of the things from the baseball ground were moved into the dressing rooms and stuff like that at the Pride Park. You know, so and when you get off to a good start, it's always easier to build an identity with the new ground and the supporters and stuff like that. So in that respect, it's been okay for Derby. I know they're struggling at the moment, but I think that's because of totally different reasons. Probably
mostly financial, to be honest, but that's the case with a lot of clubs. All right, we mentioned the players that you played against in the Premier League. I'm going to reel off a list of more: Shearer, Fowler, Sheringham, Cole, York, Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Nicholas Anelka, Michael Owen, Faustino Asprilla, Zola, Vialli. That's just a small percentage of players you've played against. Can you think of any memories against playing against these players? Because you always hear stories about how certain strikers like to play a certain way, like might be a little bit dirty, or they might play off the defender's shoulder, or just certain things here and there. Have you got any memories?
Yes, I mean, there are different, like, I played against, it was the first season I was there, we were playing Liverpool. They had Fowler and Stan Collymore up front. And it was the first time where I really sort of during the game thought, like, listen, these guys, they're top class. I mean, where you could really sense, like, when you were playing against them, you know, the way they moved, you knew you had to, if you turned your head to look at them, you knew they were running past you and stuff like that. They were just like, you really had to be on top of your game to compete with these guys. I mean, that was one. We had, like, when I first came to England, I thought I was a strong guy, because in Denmark I was strong and physical. Over there I was nothing. They had to put me in the gym and that. And my first sort of real test where I knew, oh, okay, this training I've done in the gym was actually against Chelsea, where I played against Mark Hughes, and I could handle him. I mean, you know, like physically, they said to me after the game, Jacob, we can see you're there now. You gained 10 kilos, lost 5% in fat. It's all muscle. You're there. That's another one, you know, where, oh, okay, it's fantastic. But these players, it's like, played against Jürgen Klinsmann. He was playing for Tottenham. I had a fantastic game, and he didn't touch the ball, but he was so clever. So even though that he didn't have a fantastic game, the way he could move to just get the other players in good positions, because he felt, okay, this is not my game. I'm not, when I get the ball, I lose it, or he's right up at my back and stuff like that. But he could just move. So he made little space here for that. Half a second more, this player got on the ball because he moved and stuff like that. That's where you realize you like playing against top player. But the first real one was Bergkamp. It was the last game of my first season at Derby, and it's been a great season, and we stayed up, and it was at the baseball ground and stuff like that. And when we played against some of the top players, it was always me who had to man mark them. This is part of our tactics and stuff like that. The manager says to me, Jacob, you mark Bergkamp, yeah? Didn't touch the ball for the whole game, except once, where he gets the ball with his first touch, he turns, and it's like the outside of the box, right out left side of our box, yeah, outside the box. He just turns and chips it over the goalkeeper, 1-0. It's just like, I've done nothing wrong. I was like half a yard away from him, stuff like that. It's just where you think, wow, these players, they can actually, I mean, they can play. But it's fun, especially afterwards when you haven't played for a while and you think about this, where you think, oh, it's actually a real pleasure to play against players like that, and you have a lot of respect for how good they are.
When you say you gave Bergkamp half a yard, then he punished you effectively, is that the primary difference between players like him and players who are on the cusp of being great? Do you know what I'm saying? That half yard, that he can make something out of that little bit of space.
Yes, I think what it is, it's like he was a world-class player in the day. Yeah, he was like, there weren't many better than him. And I think that's the difference between a world-class player and a top-class player. Because if you look at it, it's like I was placed between him, the ball, the goal. I was in the right position. Like I said, I was like, what, 30, 40 centimeters away from him, but just his awareness, and he knew what he was going to do before he got the ball, you know? So when you play against players like that, you have to be able to anticipate what they want to do, because otherwise hey, you got no chance. You got no chance. Of course, you learn that. I mean, I was a defender, so I had to defend against these. You learn that when you play against Zola, Juninho, and stuff like that. But that's where the really good ones is like, they can be out of the game for 85 minutes, and then with one move, they turn the game around and they win the game for their team.
You also played against Eric Cantona, a player who obviously is steeped in English football history, shrouded in controversy, but an absolute magician of a footballer. And people say that he was a catalyst that kind of made Man United what they are today, especially under Sir Alex Ferguson. What was he like playing against? Because I know that he had a bit of aggression in him, so to speak. We saw his reaction to a Crystal Palace fan many years ago, and then the famous comment about the seagulls and the trawler. But as a footballer, what was he like playing against?
Yeah, I think what it was, after that incident at Crystal Palace, obviously he learned how to control his temperament and stuff like that. And I think for him, I don't know, but that's just how I read it. It was a way of him to mature, and he was like the same as Bergkamp, you know, those kind of players who can be out of the game and they float in and they just have the right touch of the ball or the right pass. When you're looking for somebody to open the game up for you, you look to him and all of a sudden he scored a goal or put somebody free to score a goal or whatever. But when you talk about Man United, I have to say we also played against the team who won the treble. I mean, that was out of this world, I have to say. I mean, what they could do is, like, we had a game where we played at Pride Park. We were 2-0 up at halftime. We were really, really good, you know, like got everything under control. Second half, I don't remember touching the ball, and it was 2-2, and we were lucky we didn't lose. It was unbelievable how good they were. You know, when they started, like, just, you know, the back four just played the ball up to the midfield players, the way they passed it, the pace, the movement they had, the two up front, Dwight York and Andy Cole. It was unbelievable. It was like an unbelievable team. So yeah, Cantona might have helped start something, and these young players came through, and he taught them things from his experience and stuff like that. But I have to say, the best Man United team I played against is that team they had there, like late 90s. That was unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, York and Cole, they had this telepathic understanding, didn't they? We saw them at the Camp Nou, how they absolutely destroyed Barcelona and unlucky not to get the victory in the group stages. And, you know, throughout the season, they were phenomenal. But then again, you had Solskjaer and Sheringham to come off the bench. But in terms of a strike partnership with York and Cole, would you say they were the most difficult to play against, or was there another partnership that you felt, oh, hang about, they're the real deal?
Yeah, I mean, and there are more partnerships like that, but they're different. Like I said earlier on, like Fowler and Stan Collymore, top class, one a bit more physical than the other one. You had like one partnership at Sunderland, Niall Quinn and
Phillips.
Yeah. It's like, hey, Phillips was like really good finisher. You had Niall Quinn. It's impossible to mark him. So you knew he wasn't going to run in behind you. But whenever they put the ball up, you had to like anticipate where it was coming, because you couldn't jump with him. He was too tall and strong and like difficult to get into. So you had to sort of attack the ball in front of him, or you have to drop off and let him get the ball. But then at the same time, if you did that, you knew he was going to like chest it and take it down and pass it to somebody. So that was also a difficult partnership to play against. So yeah.
What about strikers with pace though? Because they say pace kills, doesn't it? I'm sure you came across like people like Anelka and all the others. Were they difficult as well? Well, of course they're going to be difficult, but in comparison to the others.
Yeah, but always like the size of Anelka and stuff like that. They're like, I didn't mind playing against them. They also had Overmars playing like right to left side, and they had pace. But when Michael Owen sort of like came on the scene, he had frightening pace. But then we had to anticipate that, because if we got up too high on the pitch when we were playing Liverpool, when he was playing, he would just kill us, because it's just like, hey, listen, we didn't have the same pace as him. So we had to be like a bit deeper when we defended. We had to anticipate and maybe just try and slow him down a little bit, because you knew if you were caught up, it must be the same today playing against Mbappe. You know, if you're caught like 5-10 yards into your own half, and there's a space behind, and they put the ball in, you're never going to see him.
Yeah,
it's just like
balls over the top. It's standard, isn't it? Balls over the top in the channels. He's got pace to burn.
Yeah, and Owen was frightening. I mean, I have to say that with his pace when he first came on, it's like, yeah, it was unbelievable.
Fantastic, brilliant. Well, God, we can go on all day about your stint in the Premier League, man, because wow, and I hope we can do this again so I can get a proper understanding of what's going on, because these names that we've spoken about, when I was growing up, like, wow, these were stellar names. They still are. And you hear about the players being inducted into the Hall of Fame of the Premier League, and they're talking about David Beckham going in. Paul Scholes will probably go in there eventually, Steven Gerrard, and you played against these guys. So boy, you must be ticking off the list of names. You're like, yep, I played against him. But let's talk about your time with the national team. Again, you're talking about a national team that won the European Championships in 1992. I think you made your debut, was it 94? Am I mistaken?
It might be, just end of 94, I think.
So you came just as they'd won the Euros, and you played in the Confederations Cup, or it's called the King Fahd Cup.
Yeah, it was the first one that they ever did. I played in that one with the national team, and we were lucky to win it. We've brought a lot of players from the Danish league, because I think it was in January or something. But we did well.
Beat Argentina in the final, mate. Come on now.
We did. No, what we did is like good team spirit. It's like, you know, with Denmark, it's like they're always difficult to play against, because like tactically, we're very, very good. And that's why we'll always do well. And it's like, we have this like, you know, of England, they talk about, oh, we had a golden generation and we didn't do well, we didn't win the World Cup and stuff like that, because they came from like different clubs, and there was like the Liverpool table and the Chelsea table. We don't have that in the Danish national team. When we come together, it's like more or less everybody talk to each other. It's like, oh, how are you doing at this place and that, and stuff like that. So there's no real jealousy between, or animosity between the players, and that's why it actually works when we're together. And then, because when we're brought up in Denmark, it's like there's a lot of focus on the tactical side of things and how you position yourself on the pitch and stuff like that. So we're difficult, and that helped us win the Intercontinental Cup, as it's called today.
Well, you had one of, if not the greatest goalkeeper on the planet in Peter Schmeichel. Now, on one here, we've got a Brazilian goalkeeper called Fabiano that's kept 16 clean sheets this season. He's been immense. He was the player of the year in Cyprus, got the award the other day. And as you can probably tell, he saved us a lot of points this season. And Peter Schmeichel was just the same for Manchester United and obviously Aston Villa and City afterwards. But for the Danish national team, I'll never forget the penalty save against Van Basten at Euro 92, that wonderful goalkeeper shirt, the multi-coloured one. What a goalkeeper he was, mate. He was phenomenal.
Unbelievable. Not only was he like, I like Peter because he's like, he always wanted to win. I know he was like shouting and stuff like that.
Was that for the cameras though? Or was he really like that?
No, he was like that. But it was when he was on the pitch because he wanted to win football games. And I have to say, for me, that's okay. I knew it's like we also got on, like, so for me it's easy to sit here and say like he was okay, but he just wanted to win games. I mean, and if he felt that people was a bit not 100% there and stuff like that, that was his way of trying to help them get on their toes and get back into their game and stuff like that. So yeah, he is, and you knew when you had a goalkeeper like that, you knew as a defender, if you made a mistake, normally it would be like 1-0 to the other team. But here you knew they still had to like go past Peter, and that gave you confidence when you played in front of him. And he was fantastic.
It wasn't just the clean sheets, it was the assist as well. That throw of his, 30, 40 yards, he could launch that ball.
Yes, I mean, obviously, they didn't use it that many times at Man United. I mean, they could have with like Ryan Giggs on the left side with his pace. But it was like one of those, like if he got the ball from a corner or something like that, the opposition had to like be on their toes because he could throw it like 5-10 yards over the halfway line easily.
Did you two ever have any altercations? Because we've seen him on television yelling at defenders and defenders giving it back to him. Did you like stand off a bit, or did you give it back to him? You got to give it back to him, surely.
No, but the thing is, like, I didn't have any problems with Peter because he respected what I did, and I think that's how I felt it. That he had a lot of respect for me coming to the Premier League, go straight into a team to do well, captain and stuff like that. So I think he had a lot of respect for me, and I had for him as well. So, and he knew that I was like 100% professional in my way, like training wise and stuff like that. So never had any problems with him, never. And I knew, sometimes I was also on the bench and you had to warm him up and stuff like that. And that's where he normally is like yelling at everybody and nobody could like warm him up. I didn't mind because I had a good shot and he knew I was going to do my best. And when he asked me to hit the ball hard, I'll do that and I'll do the stuff right. So no, hey, I know it sounds strange, but he was good as gold. It's like, but obviously he was fired up and stuff like that. But for me, hey, you should see our manager at Derby sometimes. He was worse.
Oh, yes, Jim Smith. We can talk about him in a bit. Yeah, I think Bowie Hansen was the guy that gave you your debut, wasn't he? And he was your head coach at
Silkeborg, it's Richard Müller-Nielsen who won he gave me my debut. Okay. And then when I think he moved to Finland after the Euros in 96. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And then Bo Johansson, who I had for 2 years at Silkeborg and won the championship with, he took over as the new national coach.
Brilliant. Okay. So let's talk about the brothers then, shall we? Yes. You know which brothers I'm going to talk about? Two more players, the Laudrup brothers, Brian had a fantastic career at Glasgow Rangers, came to Chelsea, didn't do as well as we wanted him to anyway, being a British football fan. But Michael, wow. 2 players with phenomenal careers. And at the World Cup, in fact, every World Cup they played in, they stepped up certain gears and certain levels, mate. What were they like?
I mean, I have to say, fantastic players. And I'm not trying to be biased, but I think Michael was the best. Like, he was just unbelievable. Great player. You could always give the ball to him, never panic, never, just a fantastic football player. Brian always did well for the national team. Always. It's like you say, I think that's just me reading into it, like, felt at home. It was a safe environment for him, and he liked that, and he always delivered for Denmark. You just have to say always. Whenever we needed something, he produced. Whereas at club level, I have to say, with his ability and pace and, the way he could dribble, I would have expected him to do a lot better. I know, listen, winning the title, I don't know, 8, 9 times or whatever at Rangers and playing in the Champions League with them. And I know he's won the European Championship with Denmark. But at club level, it's like he went to Bayern, didn't work out. AC Milan, Fiorentina, Chelsea, like you said. I think if the right manager had brought him to a big club and understood how Brian was as a person, he could have been unbelievable, because he had some pace that not many people had at the time.
I remember, I think it was the year Arsenal brought in Overmars. He was linked with a move to Arsenal, yeah. Brian Laudrup. I remember he was heavily linked, and people were saying, oh, he's going to come from Rangers and this, and then Arsenal ended up with Overmars, which I think he would have cost considerably less to bring from Ajax than Laudrup would have cost to bring from Rangers, and the rest is history, so to speak. But what a player he was. But let's quickly go back to Michael, though, because this is a guy that played for Juventus, for Lazio. He went from Barcelona to Real Madrid, if I'm not mistaken. And that was even before Figo did that. And he got a lot of abuse, Figo. So Michael Laudrup must have got 10 times more, if not more.
Yeah, he must have got that, but he was just class. He was different class. I mean, he had something special, like, you just playing with him, you knew, like, there's no panic in him, whether it's like 2 or 3 people around him. I've played with a couple of players who was the same. I have to say, I had the pleasure of playing with the only Danish player who's been voted like European Player of the Year, Alan Simonsen, back. I know it's back in 77, but listen, that was different class. You talk about somebody playing the game, seeing a pass, he could do that. I played with Elker. But Asanovic, who I played with at Derby, he was a bit the same, He's also one of those, with his talent, his ability, he should have played only at the top clubs. And I think even Arsene Wenger said that he's never seen anybody like Asanovic, because he was one of those, give him the ball, there's 3 men up, he's back, no panic. And Michael Laudrup was the same, And then they could just, like, you could give them the ball, and sometimes they were like in this position where you think, okay, you got to do something, and then it's just like one touch. The way they control the ball, with the control, they just made themselves a yard or 2 yard more. It's just unbelievable. So they got like 1 second, 2 seconds more on the ball to make this pass and stuff like that. They unbelievable players.
Mm. And you were at Euro 96, if I'm not mistaken, for the Danish national team, where you played against, was it Portugal, Croatia, and Turkey? I'll never forget the Croatia game, because Schuka chipped Schmeichel from a ridiculous angle. But I think that game was practically over, done and dusted as a contest at the time, wasn't it? But was there much pressure going into that tournament, given what happened at Euro 92? And the thing is, I know that Denmark qualified because of the whole situation with Yugoslavia in 92 and ended up winning it. So that's a massive fairy tale. And I think we saw the same with Greece in Euro 2008, whereas a lot of Greek fans were thinking, oh, well, we've won it in 2004, but we can do it again in 2008. But going into the tournament as champions, you've got a target on your chest and your back, don't you?
Yeah, but I think, to be honest, I think what happened is I think after the Euro 92, then they didn't qualify for the 94. And
World
there
Cup
was
in USA, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They brought a new group of players in. All of us who's played for the Olympic team in 92, we sort of got in and we qualified basically the team for the Euros 96. But what happened is like the last few months before the Euro 96, in those friendlies you had, the manager brought in some of his old players, the old guard, you know, the ones that he trusted in 92. And it made quite of a division. There was like two camps in the young one and the older one, and it didn't really work. And he was also, at the time, he knew he was going to stop after 96. He was going to go to Finland. So it wasn't because of the pressure we didn't do well. It's because there was no harmony or cohesion within the squad. There was like, yeah, like I said before about England, they had this table, Liverpool table, Chelsea, Man United and stuff like that. Here we had the young ones, we had then the old ones, and the old ones like this table there, but not this one. And it was horrible. So in training as well, that we had some bad training sessions where the atmosphere wasn't right. And I think that was more than the pressure or anything.
Well, you guys qualified for France 98, and that was a better tournament. If you want to talk about results, Saudi Arabia, you played, I think it was South Africa you played against France. You beat Nigeria. Was it Nigeria you beat? Yes. And then it was Brazil that knocked you out 3-2. And that was a very entertaining game. But I know it's easier to say, oh yeah, you know, playing in the World Cup is much better than the Euros because of the prestige that comes with it. But you're representing your nation at two big competitions. Did you feel more confident going into 98 than you were in 96? Did the attitude change from 96 to 98?
Yeah, I mean, again, the ones who won 92, I think there's only Brian Laudrup and Peter Schmeichel left. It was like the core of the team was like mostly those from the Olympic team 92. Then there was a couple of players who knew each other from the day they played together in the Danish team. At the time, a lot of us were playing for good teams in Europe. I mean, I was on the bench in the world in 98. I was playing every game for Derby, 90 minutes. We had like one who's just won the German championship with Kaiserslautern. He was on the bench, you know. So we had a strong squad, and I think we knew each other well. There was like a good atmosphere. That was one of Bo Johansen's strengths. Was this like building a good atmosphere, and people felt like, oh, he treat you like an adult and stuff like that. I know it's not something that can last for many years. It's like something that will work for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and when you run into problems, you have to be stronger than he probably was as a manager. But for the period when you first come in, and that helped us, you know. We'd had him for 2 years, fantastic qualification stage, like, you know, in the group stages where we played well, and it was new, and yeah, it really worked. It was like things just came together. And it's a shame we couldn't go past Brazil, because we did well, and yeah, we talked about him before. Brian Laudrup was phenomenal in that game. It's like unbelievable. But Brazil had Ronaldo.
Yeah, this is what I was going to ask you. What are your memories of that team? Did you get on the bench? You were on the bench for that game.
I was on the bench. I didn't get on. Listen, hey, Rivaldo and Ronaldo. them two just destroyed us. And to be fair, they were like on a.
It's no shame they did it to almost everyone, that competition, and they did it 4 years later as well.
I know, and Ronaldo was just like out of this world. It's like he was an unbelievable player.
Obviously, we know what happened with Ronaldo in the build-up to the final. Did you see a lot of, I don't know, a lot of attention on him specifically? Because they did that whole Yogo Bonito thing, didn't they? The advert before the World Cup, and they had Roberto Carlos, as you mentioned, Rivaldo, Bebeto was there. It was a star-studded team, but it was effectively focused on that one player. Did you notice anything in terms of the attention to him?
No, I didn't. I mean, when we played against them, I think when we got to the airport, you could just hear like people were screaming when he walked through the airport. It was late at night and we had to fly back and stuff like that. And you could just, the Brazilian team, and then he came and people were going crazy. That was sort of the only thing we noticed.
How do you prepare to play against players like him, though? That's the thing. What are your training sessions like? What are your defensive drills like? How you mentioned you can't play a high line against the likes of Mikhail Luffner. You sure as hell can't do it against these guys, but you can't play too deep either because you're inviting pressure.
Well, what you try to do is like, and I have to say, like we talked about who we played against at Derby and that, and what you try to do is like say, what is our strengths? What is it? How do we want to play? Okay, we want to play in this way. Okay, if we do that, where are they likely to like hit us? Where are our weak points? What have we got to be aware of? And then you try and put together a game plan. And it just seems like if you actually prepare well and not just only do 5-a-sides when you come to training, but prepare for the next game and you have a game plan and you stick to it. And yeah, you always get nervous when you have to play big games and that's natural. Everybody does that. People who are saying they don't, they're lying. But if you stick to this game plan, you realize that most of the times it actually works. Mm-hmm. If you can keep your emotions out, because you know they're going to go past you. But then again, the guy next to you, he's been told like he's going to go past Jacob. But then you've got to be there. But Jacob, when he's gone past you, you have to get up and get round to cover for the other one and stuff like that. And when you're willing to like run that extra yard for each other and stuff like that, it's even hard for the big players to shine and do well, because yeah, you have this die-hard feeling. When you see Juventus in Italy, you know, the defenders, when they defend, they clap each other, like pat on the back, high fives and stuff like that. And when you have that, it's like this thing is like 2 and 2 becomes 5, you know, and that's what we had at Derby. It's what we had in the national team as well, because yeah, we were great players, but we weren't world-class players. We had 1 or 2 who was, but this thing, when it really comes together, it actually becomes more than just what it is.
Do you know, I'm glad you say that, because I'm going to bring this back to my club Omonia, because this season we've had a fantastic season. As I said, kept 16 clean sheets, and the defensive line, along with the goalkeeper, have been phenomenal. We brought in Shearer, a right back, Nigerian, who's been phenomenal. Mikhail Luffner, who we'll speak about in just a moment. He came in alone from Copenhagen beginning of last season. We've got Adam Lang, who's a Hungarian international central defender. Thomas Huberchan, who I'm sure you've heard of, Slovakian defender who won the UEFA Cup with Zenit St. Petersburg many years ago. And also Jan Lesiak, who's, I think, got 16, 17 assists this season at left back. And the defensive unit is very, very important. You win the titles by having a solid defensive back line. If you know that you've got a solid goalkeeper and you're not going to concede many goals, the rest is down to the rest of the team to score your goals and to give you the victories, which is what we did. So I'm glad you mentioned the cohesion, the importance of having a defensive unit that sing from the same hymn sheet, because if you don't have that, you're not going to be winning anything.
No, I agree with you 100%. You win championships with a good defensive line, but you win games with a good striker. But you win the championship when things work defensively, when people are willing to like do that extra run for each other, like this die-hard feeling. When you can get that and you know, like this is my mate. I want to help him. Okay, he made a mistake there. I'm gonna like give 100% for him and for the team and stuff like that. And when you get this respect for each other, you know that everybody is giving 100% every time you play. It's so difficult to break down a team. And when you have that, it's like, then all of a sudden it works. And this is the thing, and it's always in my mind, this thing like, you have a good game plan and you like defensively, you're strong. And that allows your offensive players to like play more freely, because they know, okay, if we don't score too many goals today and the things that we're trying that's not working, we've got a good back line. They'll sort it out. So we only have to score one. Just like I said with Peter Schmeichel, we knew if it wasn't working today, still had a fantastic goalkeeper behind us. Yep. And that's the same for the strikers, you know, like just have a great back four or back 5, 6 who like make sure that the others don't score. So we will get points today, even though that we're not playing to our best. And sometimes that just psychologically helps the players. And, you know, like with offensive players, they have to like be okay in their head and in their minds to play freely, to do those tricky things so they can score. And yeah, I'm not surprised when you tell me that your team won the league because of the great defense. It's always like that.
Oh, it's been an immense season. And, you know, you mentioned the forwards. We brought in a forward called Ernest Asante, who I'm sure you might have heard of. He was a Nordsjælland a few years ago. Ghanaian forward, and he came in at the beginning of the season and he struggled a little bit because coming to a new country is a little bit difficult, especially when your family isn't with you. But once he settled, he got 9 goals in about 12 games, and again another boost to move us ahead for the title. But I want to quickly talk about our head coach Henning Berg. I know he's Norwegian, which obviously isn't Denmark, but it's Scandinavian, and you played against him, a central defender at Manchester United, who's a Blackburn as well. This is his second season at Omonia. In fact, we could have won the league last season. We were top when the season was cancelled thanks to COVID. So this is the second season where he's actually finished first place, but we've actually been given the title this season. He got us into the Europa League. For the first time in our history. We were unlucky in the Champions League qualifiers. We got knocked out in the playoffs, but created history, beating Red Star Belgrade, beating Legia Warsaw, beating Ararat. So it's been a successful season, a historic season. But there's this thing about Scandinavian head coaches that are very pragmatic, you know, and Henning has come to a nation where in Cyprus, they're very... How can I put it? A lot of fans are very fickle, Jacob. I'm sure you can imagine. Fans are very fickle and they expect instant results. And when he's not making a substitution at a certain time, or when he's playing a team in second gear in the first half and they step up in the third, people don't seem to understand the game. You know, and I keep saying there's a reason why teams conserve their energy. You know, we played Europa League football, for example, against PSV Eindhoven one game, and then we're playing a bottom of the table team in Cyprus the next. You can't play with the same levels of intensity. No. It's impossible. Yeah. So we brought in this head coach that knows the game inside and out. Patience isn't a virtue in Cyprus, unfortunately, but we've got a patient owner and the patient sporting director, and we've reaped the benefits. Do you know much about Henning in terms of a managerial capacity? Is he spoken about much in Scandinavia? Or?
Well, obviously, because I'm interested in football, I mean, and like you say, you've played against him, and he's Norwegian. I played with one of his countrymen, Zola, who's also the manager for many years at Copenhagen. So I don't know him that well, but from what I've seen and heard, like you say, he's pragmatic. He's got a lot of experience. Obviously, he's played at good clubs, which gives him a bit of like confidence in himself. He's done well at the clubs he's been at. I think really well when he was in Poland as well. Fantastic. So he knows what it's like. I think he's one of those that also knows, like, you know, you have to move with times. You can't just be like, I know he had a great manager in Alex Ferguson, but would that work today? I'm not sure with the players you have today. You have to be, like you said, pragmatic. You have to like maybe put an arm around more players than you used to and stuff like that. And it seems like he knows that, and he knows how to develop with time. And then again, you have this like thing. Like you said, you have an owner who's patient, who probably have a plan for how he wants to do things, a sports director, and then you find the right match with the manager who comes in, and the players, that I'm sure if you ask the players, they want to like die for the manager. And when you as a manager get that from your players, it's like you're there. I mean, you're going to have a lot of success. And from what I've heard, he's a nice guy as well, likable and stuff like that. And he's been around, he knows the game.
I think he might be getting a little bit fed up in the sense that he goes for a walk on the beach first thing in the morning, and he's got fans saying to him, "Why didn't you make a substitution in the 75th minute?" Don't ask him these questions.
Yeah, no, of course. But that's how it is. Football today it's not like when we played. It's like, hey, we're doing a podcast now. It's on YouTube. It's like games nearly every night. It's like on most TV channels. It's talked about. It's like every stone is turned, and it is difficult. And to be fair, it's like the fans pay a lot of money to come and watch the games. The players, the managers, the owners make a lot of money, and in a way they have a right to ask things. And I'd say it takes a toll on you to be in this game.
Absolutely, mate. Well, look, one more thing before I let you go. Thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely a pleasure talking to you, mate. But I want to talk to you about Mikhail Luffner, a good friend of the show, good friend of mine and my co-host Roy's. His 2-year loan is up now. On money, he's going back to Copenhagen. The club value him at close to 400,000 euros, as far as I'm aware. He's in his final year at Copenhagen, but they want to sell him, which is understandable because he can leave on a free in January or start talking to clubs in January. So they need to sell, I guess. I don't know if he's got a future at the club, but can you shed some light on the club's situation at the moment? Because as far as I understand, they've got a mixture of young players and older players, but is there some financial uncertainty at the club? Do you know much about Copenhagen as a structure? Because I know you played for the club.
Yeah, I quite know. I know them quite well. I mean, financially, well, they lost a lot of money because of the COVID situation. But listen, the owners, it's like, hey, it's no problem. Money is not a problem there. It's like no problem at all. They might say, "Oh, we're under pressure for this," but you have to remember in Denmark, it's like because of this COVID situation. If you as a company came out and said, "Oh, it's no problem" and stuff like that, you wouldn't get the financial support from the government as you maybe should. And that's, I think Copenhagen has played a little bit on that, like trying to get as much as they can on that side of things. But financially, they're fine. Don't worry about it. They'll always have the biggest budget in Scandinavia for many years to come. I can't see who should challenge them. Has he got a future at the club? I don't think so, and this has got nothing to do with him as a football player. They sacked Ståle Solbakken, who brought Mikhail to the club, and he got sacked. The new manager came in. He wants to build his own team this summer. I think they want to bring in new players. They want to get rid of some of the old guard who's been there for a few years. And obviously, Mikhail, having been there before, been on loan and stuff like that, I don't see him have a future there. And for him, if he wants to stay at your club, for him, it's great because, hey, listen, they can go and put pressure on them, and I'm sure they'll reach an agreement that's fair to everybody.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we're not financially stable. That's the problem. We've still got a debt. And although we brought in a lot of money from the Europa League and the Champions League exploits, which is great, we're having to rely on loans and free transfers. Now, I don't think Copenhagen will send him out on loan to us for another year because he's got a year left on his contract. And if they can make money from another club, they probably will sell him. And it's heartbreaking because, as I mentioned before, he's been a phenomenal player for us for the past 2 seasons. He and Adam Lang and Thomas Huberchan, they've formed a fantastic partnership. And you take one out, okay, you've got the other two that can play together, but you need that extra guy And we saw this season the important goals that he scored, the important blocks. He got his body in the way. He loves the game, but he also loves the club. And we had him on the podcast the day after we won the title, and he said, "I want to stay. I want to stay, but money's the problem, and it's the club, and it's Omonia and Copenhagen. That's the problem. The money that's been asked for, and the money that we don't have. And I just think it's really sad that it's going to end this way, because like I said, he loves the club. He loves the club.
Yeah, but it's still early doors in the transfer window. It hasn't even opened yet. And what it is, it's like, I don't know what his salary is at Copenhagen, but if the new manager who's there now doesn't want him there because he wants to bring in his own players, you'll always find a solution to things. It's like, unless there's an offer from a different club, because he's done well for you guys. I mean, bear in mind, he's played really well. He's won the league. If a big club from one of the other leagues in Europe comes and says, like, listen, we want to pay the money and we'll take him, yeah, then you have a problem. But if not, I think he'll stay, and I understand why, because you're gonna play qualification for Champions League, and if things are going right, you might get to the group stages, and sometimes as a player, it's nice to be somewhere where you appreciate it, where you're liked for what you're actually doing as a football player. And from what you say, he's doing well. He's been one of your main players, and it's nice. You don't always, as a player, want to move and do stuff. So I think if they put a lot of pressure on, and the right pressure, I'm sure you'll find a solution where you can stay.
Fingers crossed, eh? Fingers crossed. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for your time, mate. Before I let you go, do you want to let us know what you're doing with yourself now? Because I understand you got a soccer school heading to Derby, is that correct?
Yes, I'm doing private tuition, and we go out. We have this thing where we test young football players. It's a bit of fun, and then we have a new technology that we use where you can test yourself technically and with your awareness, and we combine that to do like camps. I'm doing that with a former teammate at Derby, and I'm going to go with some others to Canada and Japan, and
wow,
and also to America. So that's what I'm doing, and so I'll be traveling a bit over the next 12 months when this COVID thing is under control.
Is this youth level or junior level?
Yeah, it's youth. It's from the age of like 6, 7 till 16. Yeah, I'll say 16, 18. It's great fun. It's good. It's something where you actually develop as a player. And this is the thing. It's like we've done tests with top players in Denmark, and they've actually technically improved up to 40%, some of them. Yeah, if you look at the times, I know it's very like just statistics, but also physically, because it's high intensity training. Physically, they've improved up to 20%, but it's great fun. And after the training, you can actually download an app, so you get the training results after training, and you can compete with yourself, but you can compete with others if you want to. And for young kids, this digital thing, where they're actually doing proper football training, and then they have this digital thing. It's great, and I think it's going to help a lot of young players stay in football. Not only the top players, but I'm talking sort of on a whole, and that they keep their interest. It's great, and it's lovely to like go and train and coach these young kids. I love that.
Well, mate, do you know, that's fantastic to hear. And do you know what? I know there are some people at Omonia that actually watch this podcast, and we've had a couple of people from the coaching staff appear on our podcast, and I'm sure again they'll be watching this. So, get in touch with Jacob, because we've had 8 or 9 players come through the youth academy into the first team, and 2 of them were like 16, 17 years old. A few of them made their national team debuts, and youth development is high on our list of priorities as a football club, and Henning Berg will say that as well. So, yeah, if anyone at Omonia is watching still, get in touch with Jacob, and I'm sure you don't mind going to Cyprus, get a bit of a tan as well,
They can get in touch with you, and you can give them my contact details. Deal. No problem. 100%. I'll come to Cyprus any day.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, Jacob, are you on any form of social media that anyone can get in touch with you and ask questions?
Yeah, I mean,
anything like that?
I have to think. We just started this company. I'm on Instagram.
All right.
Yeah, it's just JL Academy. We're on Facebook. I'm also my own Jacob Laursen on Facebook. They can go on to that. So yeah, they can just go there. They can go message me on. It's no problem. WhatsApp. I'm on WhatsApp as well. So J.T.L.16. I think I am on WhatsApp. So yeah, feel free if anybody wants to get in contact. No problem.
Great stuff. There you go. So that was Jacob Laursen, years of experience. Wow, a fountain of football knowledge, and I'm sure he's got so many stories to tell. And hopefully we'll have him back on the show soon so we can carry on these discussions, because I'm sure our listeners are going to have loads of questions. So until next time, boys and girls, bye.